connectivity, you know, a few years ago, you'd stand up here and everyone would go, my clients don't, you know, people in the audience would go, people don't want connectivity when they're on the plane, they just went to switch off. You know, now, how often do you hear that argument, James Pearson? Should we do it by surname?
How often do we get what? What's the question?
How often do you, in the old days, you guys would stand up here and argue that people want connectivity. Now I think the argument's dead, that most people accept that most passengers want it.
So it's no longer, I think, the question of if they want connectivity. It's like, how fast is it? Where does it work? And how much do I have to pay to get on my aircraft? What's the downtime? All those issues. So that's where it's going. I mean, you know, people want speeds. All of us can talk about different speeds to the aircraft, and we do as well at Viasat, because right now ours is the fastest. But it's really about what people can do with that. It's all about the customer experience on the aircraft. What we demonstrated at NBAA this year was not only streaming video, but augmented reality, which is real now because I know AT&T, through their DirecTV division, is bringing their app, DirecTV app, to augmented reality goggles.
So is that because you can collect Pokemon when you're flying?
No, that's not it. No. It's just people want to do, when they're in the air, what they have typically done in their office and in their home. And they've been told for many years that that's coming, but now it's finally real. They can do that.
Jim,
Yep.
you know, do you actually need salespeople now for connectivity products?
No, I mean, at this point, everyone knows what's out there for the most part. They want it, they need it. I mean, if you're running the charter, it's almost a given that they want connectivity while they charter the aircraft. If you're a business owner flying an aircraft for business, you need it to stay connected to your team back in the office, watching stocks, whatever you're doing. So, like, you know, James said, it's really how fast do you want it, where you fly, and will it fit on your aircraft. If we get it on your aircraft, there's a solution for you. And that's what's really out there nowadays.
Jared, what, in the tech world, there's a lot of talk about the total addressable market. How many aircraft are there left for you guys to fight over?
So I guess from our side, we serve a lot of different vertical markets. For this audience, I'd probably focus specifically on 4 different market sizes, and then I like to break those kind of out on time frames. So if we focus on near-term time frames, I think the magic number for the business aviation is probably about 5,000 to 7,000 aircraft. If we start backing that out, we'd say, let's say about 20,000 jets. About half of those are candidates, and then we would say about 3,000 of those are already equipped in some form. And so that's where you get those other numbers. Then obviously adding in from the OEM side as well to that. Another big market is MilGov for us. So not only Intelsat's FlexExec, we have Inmarsat's L-band and JX systems, Avante's steerable KA beams, and then they're talking about unmanned aircraft. We're already doing a lot of that in those markets. In the midterm, now we're starting to focus on smaller aircraft, so maybe mid-size aircraft, then down into the lighter aircraft and the turboprops, and then in the long-range markets, vertical takeoff and landing is very reliant on connectivity. So those are big markets there as well.
The mid-size seems to, is the mid-size the new battleground for you guys? Chris?
Well, I don't think any of us are going to limit ourselves on battlegrounds. I think the real question is what does connectivity mean to you now than it did 2-3 years ago? Because we're seeing that connectivity is more than just the back of the airplane. We're seeing connectivity related to the front of the airplane. We're seeing connectivity related to what you do with that data that you're able to receive off the plane. I think passengers want to have an experience where getting on and having connectivity in the form of a DirecTV link was at one time a requirement. I think it's more of a content experience, just to have a pipe that is reliable, that allows them to do whatever they want anywhere in the world. And then taking it a step further, having connectivity come back to the operations, whether it's a charter management company, to be able to manage the connectivity to ensure that the customer is experiencing what what they expect to experience, and then from a maintenance perspective, use that information as well. And the connectivity the definition has, I think, evolved.
So you touched on the word reliability. This is an issue. A lot of the criticism of connectivity is that now you've got people hooked on it, that they'll be flying. There are dead spots. If you fly from London to Italy, there's a dead spot over the Med. Is reliability something that can improve significantly in the next few years? Anyone can answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing reliability come up quite a bit. I mean, as the technology matures, it's getting much and much better. The other thing, too, is the tools we use to monitor what's going on the aircraft. So there's apps out there now that we can monitor what's going on in your aircraft real time. So if there's a problem on your aircraft, we could take a look at it and probably fix it while the airplane's still airborne. So there's more and more technology coming out there that allows us to monitor the systems, makes them more reliable and more consistent. I mean, once you have it, like you said, people always want to connect. We had people joke about it. They rather lose an engine and lose their connectivity on an aircraft. They'll actually down the aircraft for lack of connectivity. So it's getting to that point where the reliability has to be up there. And I think with a lot of the newer systems out there, you're going to see that.
Do you guys all accept that we're not quite there in the passenger experience?
I would say we haven't, as an industry, delivered what people had been led to believe they could get. Like I mentioned earlier, people have been talking about the office in the sky for some time. Our competitors have used it at Viasat. We've used it too. I would say it really wasn't until around this year when that's really happening to the extent that people today in 2018 are expecting it. And by that, I mean, can you get on an aircraft? Can you have as many people who are sitting on the aircraft use their devices? Can they use multiple devices? Do they have to care about how much data they're consuming? Because at home or in the office, you don't have to do that, right? So we're finally to that place today. And just one comment on mid-cabin, you mentioned it earlier, but with the Embraer team in the room when they made that nice surprise announcement at NBAA on the Praetor aircraft, what they found is people, even in super mid and mid-cabin aircraft like the Legacy and Praetor, they say, why can the large cabin guys get this great connectivity and we can't? So, we're proud to be a provider to those aircraft as well at Viasat.
I guess I'll chime in. So, are we there yet as far as user experience? I think that it defines on who those users are and how many there are in there. So, certainly with the large aircraft and the amount of bandwidth that's available for any of those through a variety of different systems, we can meet and exceed their expectations. The caveat to that is how many people is on board. Is it an ultra high net worth individual and their wife and some family friends? Is it a corporate board for a company, or is it a movie star and their entourage of 12 other people on there? So the number of people, what they're actually doing, the type of activities, where they're flying, all that has to do with that total experience that they're actually having on that aircraft. So I think that yes, we've certainly delivered through any of the different networks great experiences. It just depends on who those are and what their expectations are. And it's rapidly accelerating towards those. On the mid-size aircraft, I think that's the next frontier. A lot of these large steerable antennas can't fit on those size aircraft. And so they're really, if you look at on a global market, very underserved with the technology that's out there right now. Pretty much swift broadband type of solutions. So limited data speeds and a lot of the stuff that they want to do that they can experience on these larger aircraft they can't do on the smaller. So I think that's probably the next frontier, is how to deliver a very robust connectivity experience to those smaller aircraft.
Okay. The cost is reliability is seen as the biggest issue from people, followed by cost. Cost is an interesting one, isn't it? Because much as I want to wind you guys up, it does cost quite a lot to send a satellite up into space and then beam something to back. Do you see cost as something that will come down?
It probably will eventually come down a bit, but you think about like your home internet. 20 years ago, you probably pay the same amount you pay now, but instead of getting like 3 300 kilobits per second, you're getting a gigabit worth of speed. So just like that, instead of the cost, it's staying pretty much consistent, the cost, but you're getting more and more capability. So when we launched our new 4G service in the US and the air-to-ground network, you're paying the same amount you paid for the old 3G service again, but basically getting 3 times the speed. So what you're seeing is not so much the cost is coming down, you're getting more capability. As more competition comes out, more satellites get up, you have Elon Musk talking about 4,300 low Earth satellites and all this other stuff that's coming out in the next 5 years or so, if he gets it done. You might see costs come down, but it's too hard to say right now because, like you said, it costs billions of dollars to put satellites in space and then maintain them too.
So I did some math on this just before our panel, and I came to the same conclusion. So if we compare a Viasat service today to Swift broadband, which I think is one of the great misnomers, right? Because it's neither Swift nor broad. But the price of Viasat KA compared to that is at least 20 times less expensive if you look at what we're offering today. And if I did a different comparison just between the Viasat older service, our KU band and our new KA band, it's about an 80 times cost reduction, meaning similar things. So 3 years ago, a customer who would buy Viasat service through either Rockwell Collins or through Satcom Direct would pay $9,000 a month for that. But they would get 1.5 megabits per second and only 5 gigabytes of data. So we've increased the speed by 10 times, or more than 10 times, up to 16 megabits per second, and increased the data allocation by 8 times. So it's like 80 times better than it was just 3 years ago.
But the perception is still that it's very expensive.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, it's not cheap, but I think about my own house, how much my kids are using more and more connectivity, and I see the price going up on my monthly internet bill, and if I didn't increase the bandwidth, not only would I be extremely upset because my kids would be hogging all the bandwidth. So, I mean, customers have given us the feedback that they're willing to pay for a better experience. I mean, that last poll seemed to be a good gauge where reliability and experience outweighs the price a little bit. The cost is in a close second place, but reliability can be justified if it's there, or the cost can be justified if the reliability is there.
I was late adding installation to that. And one question we have, and Gogo's getting picked on, Jim, which I think can tell you that your competitors are better at using Slido to attack you than the others. Someone's gone, while the speeds have increased, the cost of the equipment on the aircraft has increased significantly. Gogo L5 hardware, actually $240 is amazing value. But you know, the cost of installations, and I think it's a problem I think or a criticism everyone gets, is the cost and the time to install aircraft is long, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we go through, develop the equipment takes money. I mean, you guys all run businesses, so you have R&D costs, you got to recoup that cost. We got to install in the aircraft. Labor costs are going up for the things. So, you know, you look for the Gogo L5 hardware, you say it's $240,000. I'm assuming that's an install price because the retail for the equipment is about $126,000. So that's about twice that for installation. If you look at a KA system or a KU system, you're talking $500,000. So it's not just Gogo, prices are going. The price in general is going up just because it's, the system itself is getting a lot better. So you're getting a lot more speed, you're getting a lot more capability. And I mean, I wish we could do it cheaper. We don't make tons of money. We're a public traded company. You can see what our margins are. So go ahead and look at our SCE filings. We're not like, just printing cash over here. And we are a very small, we have 300 people in our company, so we're a very small company, so we don't have a whole lot of overhead. So the cost that you're seeing on the equipment is what it basically costs to develop that equipment, make the equipment, and sell the equipment. Over time, it may come down. I mean, we're trying to push down, like if we do have a system for L3, which is a base model for $40,000, it allows you to connect 5 people on it. So it really depends what you're trying to do. I mean, the L5 systems are top-of-the-line air-to-ground network systems, so you're getting the most capability and the most users. And there's other systems that are lower cost.
And the installation prices do vary a bit by whose hardware it is. And I'm talking for the satellite systems as well. So Viasat system, only 3 LRUs. It reduces the cost of the installation, reduces the cost of the equipment, reduces the time to install. And it's public information now. I think there was an article at NBAA that some OEMs are installing our equipment, full up install, new radome, new chipset installation below $400,000 for a global satellite-based solution. So it can be done, but you're right, it's not ever going to be cheap to put this on an aircraft.
There's an interesting question at the bottom. Will we see more providers and competition in the future? In some ways, it would be easier if there were 2 satellite providers, because the costs you each face on certification are huge, aren't they? And if is the market, is it always going to be high because it's such competitive space and there aren't that many units?
I guess I'll chime in on that. So I think there is a lot of providers, and if we look into next year, it's actually pretty exciting as far as cost of equipment and market competition, and as they start looking forward at different capacity on these different networks. So if we were to look at from our side, we just announced what we call the SD experience, and there's 3 pillars on that. The first pillar being networks. So if we look at those, we have obviously Viasat KU, Viasat KA. We have Inmarsat safety services, Inmarsat L-band or Swift broadband, JX service, Jet connects off of that. The new Intelsat network from their Flex Exec network. We have the new Iridium Certus network. We have Smart Sky. So as we start looking into next year and you start adding in all those different networks, that's quite a bit of competition when we think of a few years ago when there was only 1 solution, 2 solutions, things like that. So that's good as far as driving the market prices down through competition, additional capacity, and I think that competition is welcomed in this environment, and that it's going to definitely increase that value and lower prices, better experiences, and people are going to have to get creative.
And just to add to Jared's comment, I think you're going to see some new networks come out. Iridium Next, OneWeb, these future networks that are currently in works, and we'll see in the near future as well.
Jim, there's a tough one for you, just to show we're not editing the questions. First mover has its advantages, given that Gogo was the first, but provided a less than desirable experience. Has that damaged? I would give the European perspective that in Europe, everyone wishes they had Gogo.
Yeah. And like I said, we have over 5,000 customers on board Gogo right now. I mean, if you look at our customer rankings and customer satisfaction ratings through like AIN and ProPilot, we're on the top every year. So I'm not really sure where that comment comes from. Yeah, we have some growing pains. Everyone does. I mean, we started this 25 years ago in the old analog days when we first started this stuff. Now we've gone to digital. So I think right now, if you look at it through reliability and the number of systems we have online, the number of systems we're selling, and we're back ordered for another few months on the L5 systems, I think the brand's doing pretty well, and I think we have a pretty good brand reputation. But like I said, competition is good. We always look for more people to come and join the industry. It makes us be better. I mean, that's the way it is.
So Jared, we've got a question. Does it make sense to offer a free temporary subscription for new customers? Think of Sirius, the radio, when you buy a new car. I'm guessing the installation makes that very difficult. But
Sure does. There's a high barrier to entry.
Assuming the installation's already done, talk about the broker program, and we kind of do that.
That's one thing. So actually, a lot of folks in this audience I work with on a regular basis. So they came in and said, okay, we're through these transaction process, there's a lot of time when someone will deactivate services and then start up services, or they need to do testing and different things. So I said, okay, what would be the best way to go at that? And they said, hey, can we develop a program with you guys where you'll work with all of the different vendors, and we can offer some different testing programs to them so that they can demonstrate that to prospective buyers so that we can go through all the testing and everything. So like went to James and said, hey, we have a great idea, can we do this? They all signed on board, and it's been a great success this year. And so yeah, it is basically a free service. Obviously for testing and demonstrations only, but things like that where now we can have more people experience those, and it's really a win-win.
So I was going to ask you about the NBAA. You guys announced, we can't say powered by the hour because that's owned by Rolls-Royce, but you guys announced pay by the hour.
Yeah, so trying to think of where to. So the best way I like to explain that is we're laser focused on a lot of the customer experience and working with the customers and, you know, what are their needs and stuff like that, and then bringing that back into the industry. And a lot of the feedback we got was that if we look at utilization for a business jet across a year, on the connectivity side, they're having to plan that usage and the packages that they select based on whatever that highest utilization rate is. So they'll have a slow time at one time and a lot of flights at another, but yet they always have to aim high. And so usually they go into a higher package, or they might have a maintenance events through a year that they don't have anything going on, no connectivity used, but they still get the bills. So they said, we'd really like something where we can get, you know, all the speed and a great experience and everything, but we can link that to what is running all of our other bills, and that's times and cycles. So, so we went to Intelsat, and they came back and said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so that's what we announced at MBAA is kind of a different landscape and linking those prices specifically with the utilization.
Is anyone else considering an hourly rate?
We've had it for about 2.5 years.
Apart from obviously Gogo, which has had it for 2.5 years.
And we innovated it with Rockwell Collins. We started with the charter market, so hourly plans. That's how charter operators bill their customers. They build it right into their hourly plan if they want to do connectivity that way.
Would anyone look at doing a system where, like a mobile phone contract, where I get my phone for free, so you install for free in return for my monthly contract payment?
I'll just say to that it's becoming a lot more creative in the way that the services are being packaged together. So it includes hardware in certain situations. It's now being billed in creative manners where where initially it came out and you paid a flat rate, no matter if you used it or not. It's becoming a lot more creative where now the providers can do things like Jared had commented earlier, and pay by the hour. So it's being tailored much more to the individual operator's needs, and the charter market has their needs versus a private operator. So it's definitely maturing over the last couple of years.
So you'd consider it, you'd maybe negotiate doing something like that, all of you?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Like I said, in our lower systems, the 2L3 systems, we have a $99 per hour plan. We used to have a $39 an hour plan, very similar to the Airway. I saw that pop up in one of the questions. That one we suspended, but we still got the $99 per hour rate for an L3 system.
With the satellite hardware, we have a larger amount of hardware to amortize over the length of the contract. So we put one together. It's been offered through our service providers, but at like $25,000 a month, we haven't had any takers on it.
Really? Okay, let's go through the top voted question. This is why democracy does not work. How much data does President Trump need to keep up with his Twitter usage?
So we're the provider for those aircraft. So mostly it's the other user on the aircraft. Twitter with 140 or 280 characters doesn't take very much, but all the other people on the aircraft are connecting to secure government lines, doing VPNs, doing video conference calling. That's where the
Streaming
data
Fox
is.
News.
They stream Fox News too.
Okay, cybersecurity. Who would like to talk about that?
Probably me. Okay. Or if you'd like to.
So from the Rockwell Collins perspective, the cybersecurity topic is pretty woven into the foundations of anything that we've built. Obviously, with the acquisition of AirInc, it's really brought a unique ability with AirInc's private network and the security infrastructure that's there for supporting governments, military, and then the Rockwell Collins hardware side coming together. Combining the cybersecurity of both these companies has now been part of, like I said, the DNA of anything that we built from the ground up. The cybersecurity is taken into consideration, and it's monitored by a big team and a secure building and all that's in place.
So for us, cybersecurity is very, very hot topic with a lot of our customers. Obviously, business jets are, from an IT perspective, an easy target for a lot of those. So as far as ways that we secure different networks and build those out, we have a lot of different approaches to that. One way is where we'll come in and actually go and sit down with those clients and identify all those different pieces and parts of the network and build kind of tailored solutions to them. Another way is we actually have several clients that we build private networks right from their corporate headquarters all the way out to that aircraft. And then we even have a cyber module within our SD Pro portal that goes beyond the level of just securing a network, but also having active threat monitoring. And then we can provide that insight directly to those operators of those aircraft. So as with the buzz terms, they're multi-layered approach. One size doesn't necessarily fit all, but you really have to take in and realize that they're definitely a target in these kind of environments.
I mean, with the air-to-ground network, we own the whole network from all the way up until we basically pass it off to the internet provider on the ground. So we're constantly testing the system. We have all the same security measures in place that you have with banking and all those types of systems out there. So, like, one of the advantages of being vertically integrated, owning the network, owning the hardware, and owning the data subscriptions, we have a lot more control over the whole cybersecurity picture up until, like I said, until it gets to our NOC, and then once it leaves our NOC, then it's into the regular internet systems. So, I mean, we take it very seriously. Like I said, we do monthly tests. We get audited on a monthly basis by various organizations. And like I said, everyone takes it seriously nowadays.
Okay, I wasn't really expecting any of you to go, wow, we're all right, we're not worried. Any questions from the room, old school? It's so bright, honestly, I should be wearing sunglasses. If only someone had offered those rather than socks. I think there are out there. Okay, nice easy question. What's the biggest obstacle to providing the same service in the air as we experience on the ground?
You're traveling at 500 knots versus stationary. That's probably one of the biggest obstacles. And the other thing is...
Or supersonic in the future.
Or supersonic, yes. The other thing is, I mean, a lot of it's satellite-based. So if you live in a remote area and you have to get a satellite-based system for internet because you don't have a hardwired line, the most you're going to get right now is about 25 megabits per second. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. The satellites are getting better and better. I know Viasat's putting up a bunch of new satellites that are faster, so is Inmarsat. So as those satellites go up, the speeds will get faster, but I think you'll always be 1 or 2 generations behind what's on the ground. I mean, if you look at what's going on the ground right now, we're all going to 5G, which is, talking about 1,500 times the speed that you have nowadays. It'll probably take another 10 years to get that kind of speeds into an aircraft. We're always going to be behind.
Okay, so here's some of that area you love disagreement, right? So this is where I'm going to disagree with Jim, because you don't have to be behind a generation in satellite anymore. And that's if you choose the right satellite. So people talk about
you have a gigabyte satellite, a gigabyte service through your satellites?
Yes. So there are K-band satellites, but it's not about the frequency, it's about how much capacity is in the satellite. So our competitors' K-band satellites have 7 gigabit per second capacity. Ours now have 260 going to 1,000. And what that means is our home internet customers today, we provide to homes as well, have 100 megabit per second plans they can get to their home.
But there are still areas, if you're, where, Alaska, your coverage isn't as good, is it? You're not offering me, if I buy a house, a cottage in Alaska, will you guarantee me 100 megabits per second?
I don't know. We cover Alaska, so you go to Viasat.com, type in your zip code, and they'll tell you what plans we offer there.
Okay, I don't know any Alaska zip codes. Okay, James, you can have this one. James, you can have this one. We talked earlier about the need for the OEM to make strategic partnerships with satellite providers. I think this is from your colleagues. SD has done this with Gulfstream. Sorry, it's for you, Jared. Has done this with Gulfstream. Can you speak to the effects of that? Signed, Satcom Direct, PR.
It's been incredibly successful. Anytime that you can start working directly with manufacturers on the OEM level and be in sync with that, not only on the sales side up front, but then also in the aftermarket and the support sides. It's very beneficial to kind of work lock and step. They're close to the heartbeat of whatever those aircraft are. It increases the reach in people that you're working with, and then it gives us a different perspective too, not just from the connectivity side, but then from the manufacturing side as well, to try and kind of build and cater those different experiences. So from the OEM side, they're trying to differentiate themselves, and so we try to offer different sides on the connectivity experience to make that better as well.
Okay, so Jared got the softball question. You can each choose one question from the final. Chris, you raised your microphone first. You can go.
Well, the one that talks about streaming aircraft and engine data for better live info on the ground to support single pilot or pilotless ops. Not necessarily specific to single pilot, but to my original comment about what connectivity is, Rockwell Collins is now looking at how all the connectivity on an aircraft impacts an operation and how that information can be used. We don't just consider ourselves a connectivity service provider, but more of an information provider to be able to enable not just the people in the airplane, but the management companies, the operations on the ground, and even the executive assistants for the owner to be able to see and take action with anything related to the aircraft in flight. So managing data, Rockwell Collins and GE signed a contract earlier this year for providing Folkwa, and that's a new branch that we're growing on our tree to be able to differentiate as well as to take that data, but other data feeds as well from the cockpit and the cabin to help operations be more efficient in their jobs.
Okay. Jim, how do you cater your products to be price adaptive to corporate clients needing solely emails as opposed to the family with 4 kids streaming Netflix?
Yeah, well, you said multiple products. So like our L3 system is great for someone who just want to do email and text, up to 5 systems, 40 grand for that system. You could then buy the hour, or you could buy, bulks of data, or you go to the very high-end L5 product, which allows the 4 kids streaming Netflix. We did it during demos during NBAA last year. So it really depends on, when you go to ask what you want, talk to your installer, whoever's actually working with you on the system. The first question that person should always ask you is, what are you trying to do with your connectivity? Because not everyone has the same needs. And it's like, are you looking for just email and text? Are you looking for streaming? Are you looking for audio streaming? Are you looking for video conferencing? And from there, they should be able to pick the right system for your aircraft as long as it fits on the aircraft. So like I said, at least at Gogo, we have various systems based on what your needs are. And price points for the data, too.
James, when is ludicrous speed coming?
Now.
Good answer.
Now.
Okay, final question. Let's end with a nice one. If I spend $500,000 on my aircraft, equipping it with your latest technology, can you tell me if I'll get that 500,000 back in 5 years' time when I sell my aircraft? Or will it be out of date and worthless?
Everybody's
Don't rush. Take your time.
Okay. It depends. How about that for an answer? I've heard both stories. So I heard some brokers say that it doesn't add value to the aircraft, but the aircraft sells a lot quicker. It won't be on the market as long. Of course, that was about a year ago. Before now, there's almost no airplanes on the inventory anymore. If you look at the Blue Book values, they actually have price points in there. With connectivity, it's this much. Without connectivity, you take off this much. So I think you recoup some of your value. You never get 100% of the value back. I think that's being unrealistic. You don't get that with any type of option you add to an aircraft.
Okay, but can you guarantee me I won't get a 0 back in 5 years?
I can't guarantee anything, especially.
I think if you go to Apple and you have an old generation phone that's in perfect condition, you try to trade it in, they're not going to give you the full value of the phone to upgrade to the latest and greatest. And so similarly, aviation and the technology is moving so fast that until we develop hardware that is almost artificial intelligence capable to keep its software up to date and upgrade to the latest and greatest speeds and coverage areas and have the price affect what the market bears, you're not going to get 100% back when you go to sell the airplane.
So should I depreciate my connectivity as if it's software over 5 years? rather than 25 years or 20 years for an
Where's the
aircraft.
finance guys?
You know, yeah.
I deal with this quite a bit. So when we start looking at appraising or drawing those depreciation curves and on the different equipment, you really have to look at each type of equipment and specifically what hardware that is. And everyone is a little bit different. So for example, the advanced KU from Viasat, they've come out publicly and said, if you get this system, this gives you in the future, when you're ready to upgrade to their new KA system, which they launched through a Viasat 3 system, that you can upgrade that and that it's compatible with those. So that helps safeguard that, and that changes the depreciation curve versus something else that we know that there's a planned obsolescence through those. Another interesting example is Jet Connects from Inmarsat, arguably the most popular out there right now, going like crazy. So, and not just us as connectivity people, but people in the industry saying that if your aircraft does have that, it's getting more attention, it's moving faster. Jetcraft in their 10-year forecast just came out with a big, hats off on connectivity into those. So when I look at those depreciation curves, that's actually very steady, very little depreciation through that. It's the latest, greatest, it's a hot option, all the new aircraft have it. So that's standing strong. The places where it gets tricky is in a few years when they come out with their next generation, then you have the old generation now. And so the minute they announce those, it changes those curves.
Al, if I can give a shout out to Jetcraft, because they just did their latest 10-year forecast. And in there, if you look at it, they addressed connectivity, and they had a so-so connectivity offering and a good connectivity offering. And if I remember right, the good connectivity offering had a difference of about $300,000 between that equipped aircraft and one that had nothing on it, same aircraft.
Okay, so I'm going to let the audience have the final word when they're going, an iPhone is $1,000 and your system $500,000. The other option is just to buy 500,000 iPhones for your aircraft. Thank you very much.